In the previous video, you learned how the entire or the overall market has moved on a daily, weekly or monthly basis. And you may well say, well, now that I know how the whole market, or know how to find out how the whole market is moving, how do I find shares within those sectors that are performing better than others? Well, again, this program has provided you with a very easy way of doing so. Once again, select Scans or the Scans menu from the menu bar, but this time select Market Carpets. And as the name already describes, you have a view of what we call a carpet in different colors of each of the sectors within the stock market. And as I move over these sectors on the right hand side, you'll see a graph showing the performance of each of the sectors. The first time that you load this particular carpet, you will see it's again in 1 day, but you can also move this to, let's say, 1 week. And just notice, after I put this on for 1 week, how the colors in the carpet are actually changing. You can now see that in the last week there are many more sectors in the green area right on the top than there were when there were in the 1 day. Let me just bring the 1 day back again, and there you go. Now, within each of these squares you see little squares, and each one of those little squares indicates a share within that sector. Now you can see, for instance, there is only one little square in the automotive block here, whereas in this sector here there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks. So in other words, there are 5 shares in this particular sector. But you may well say, well, I know that there are more shares in these sectors. And the reason for this not showing is because in the include, right at the bottom here, you can decide which shares you want to actually see. And in this instance, I've said to the computer, I only want to see shares that are highly liquid or liquid. In other words, shares that can trade. If I put liquid and highly illiquid in there as well, now you will see a different picture. It will redraw, and now you will see that in the automotive sector there are now, instead there was only 1 before, there's now 2, 4, 5. But I'm really not interested in those shares that I cannot trade in. So that's why, by using the include or exclude button, you can say in this time, I take these shares that are illiquid or highly illiquid already out of the equation, so that I do not get sidetracked by looking at something that's really not a very good investment opportunity. Clicking, for instance, if you now want to know what shares these are, you can click on each of these squares, like in this case, let me take this square, and now you can see that in this sector here there are the sector itself, Datatec, DiData, Business Connection and Decentrix. Again, looking at the graph on the right hand side, you will see the performance of each of the shares. If you put your mouse tip on there, it's going back to October 22nd, so you get very quickly an idea which or how these sectors have been performing, or no, rather shares, sorry, have been performing since October last year. And as you can see here, Datatec has indeed moved up quite considerably over the time period. Down here, top 5 shows you the top 5 shares in that particular sector, and the bottom 5 shows you in this case only 1 share, Datacentric, that has dropped again, remember this is 1 day by 1.5% over a day. Now, I want to redraw the carpet, which you click here at the bottom, and I now want to look at it over a longer period to show you how quickly these colors can change. If I now look at, for instance, over 1 week, just watch these colors here at the moment are fairly pale green. In 1 week, these colors are much stronger green. In other words, the whole market over the last 5 days has improved reasonably well in those sectors only. Now this was confirmed in a way by the previous video we looked at, when we looked at overall market view. But now let's have a look at going back 3 months. Now here you can also see that over the last 3 months which of the sectors have done best and which of the sectors have done worst. Now there are 2 ways of looking at this. In our previous video we discussed follow the trend. Similarly, you could well be a contrarian investor and say that some shares that have really hit bottom are more than likely going to rise in the near future or over a longer period. Now, let's take a sector like this, JSC Beverages, which has dropped by looking on the right on the graph. I can't get to the graph without actually moving it quite considerably. If I now click on here, you can see there are 2 things that make up this graph. There is the JSC Beverages sector itself and SA Breweries. Now if you now look at the graph of SA Breweries, you can see it has come down almost identical to the whole sector came down. But now you can see it's on the way up. Now as you probably know, SA Breweries is a very important share in the South African economy. In fact, it is part of the top 40 shares. So you could well think to yourself, well, this may well be an opportunity because I can buy SA Breweries at a much lower price than it has been, let's say, at the end of December or the end of 2008, when the share was at this high point, which was over 175 Rand, compared to where it is now round about 145 Rand. So there's a 30 Rand difference. The reason I'm showing you this is that this program, and I'm now going to redraw the carpets, or this particular scan, is exceptionally useful in identifying very quickly where the opportunities are and where the declines in shares or where shares may lie in terms of very good stock that has been hit hard by the market, but the recovery potential of those shares has to be there. Again, you can also look in as far as the up or down days, and again you get a very similar picture, but your sectors immediately change. This is the number of days this particular sector has been moving upwards compared to the number of days or of other sectors that have moved up. So in other words, this sector here had more frequent price increases than any sectors behind here. Also, you can look in a similar way, you can look at the market meter. Now remember, we're looking at 3 months here, and you can see that over 3 months the market has declined significantly, whereas if you now look again over a 1 day, or let's say 1 week, which is more indicative, the market has increased the sectors on a 50-50 basis. So in order to study the market and to find very quick way of looking for opportunities, finding a quick way of getting a feel for the market, these 2 programs or these two scan facility that I've shown you now are exceptionally important, and they should be the very first ones you look at immediately after you've done a download. Again, do not forget to include or exclude this little window here where you can exclude liquid or illiquid shares. My recommendation would be to keep illiquid shares right out of the equation as well, and especially as highly illiquid shares. Use it, study it, and I can assure you it is an enormous help to any investor who wants to either look at the opportunities for picking up shares that have declined heavily, or picking up shares which are moving upwards. And as I said in the previous video, you want to follow the trend, then Market Carpets is the first program you should look at when you start making investment decisions using this program.